They said it was impossible. They laughed at the dreamers. They mocked anyone who dared suggest we could travel faster than light. Those people are awfully quiet today because what scientists just announced changes everything you thought you knew about the limits of human potential. No more exotic matter, no more theoretical impossibilities, just pure peer-reviewed physics that actually works, and the implications are staggering. The old guard is terrified because if they've been lying about this, then what else have they been hiding? Former defense contractors are breaking silence. Classified programs are leaking details, and the technology that could take us to the stars isn't coming someday. It's actually here now. So buckle up for this one. Now, before we jump into today's news, here's a quick word from our sponsor. Hyperbit Technologies, trading under HYPAF on the U.S. market. As President Trump puts the spotlight on crypto and pushes forward policies to keep America ahead in the digital asset race, Hyperbit is charging ahead with next-generation crypto mining technology, expanding on their multi-million-dollar crypto treasury that already includes Bitcoin and Ethereum, and aiming to position itself to benefit from pro-innovation laws and executive orders. Now, this is a complete diversified company that gives you one-stop exposure to the entire crypto sector without having to pick and choose individual projects. Honestly, I could talk about Hyperbit all day, but Trump's bold pro-crypto stance says it all. For everything you need to know, check out the link in the description, hyperbit.ca, linked below. So we've got some interesting news that has just been breaking in the last couple of days. This is it. Scientists have now announced a real warp drive design. No sci-fi, no Star Trek props. For the first time, physicists have a warp drive model that works without impossible negative energy. And here is what it means for humanity. The warp drive bends space-time itself, squashing space in front, stretching it behind, so you travel faster than light without breaking Einstein's rules. Imagine going from Earth to Alpha Centauri in days and not decades. So, what is warp drive technology? Well, one of my favorite follows is Ashton Forbes, posting this in April. Warp drive and negative energy for dummies. You make a powerful burst of electromagnetic energy in one spot, the tear in space-time will equalize and close quickly. This is gravity manipulation.
Available.
How do conditioned photons generate negative energy?
If we generate an intense enough beam of energy focused in one spot, this will tear apart the fabric of space-time itself, creating shock waves, pressures which we call gravity, anti-gravity, and gravitational waves. The faster the tear moves, the more energy spews forth, enough speed and the tear practically holds itself open. Such is the energy available. But we can do better. Focus a beam of conditioned photons, and we can create a tear in the fabric of the atomic forces as well. An incredibly energetic tear, and a disproportionately powerful space-time ripple. But this ultimate void of material energy cannot remain open. It must close, drawing in its surroundings. As it does so, we have negative energy. This is gravity. And this is how we can make a spacecraft fly faster than the beam of light.
Well, well, well. Warp drive technology. Negative energy signatures, Ashton Forbes also. If you expand space, then that area will cool down and form fog. Expanding space is equivalent to negative energy in Miguel Alcubierre's warp drive metric. The plasma orbs in the MH370 videos are using warp drive negative energy density for endothermatic propulsion, creating an artificial gravity well. Now, if you're not familiar with Ashton Forbes' work on the MH370 flight that disappeared, I encourage you to dive deeper. One of the most revealing investigations that exposes scientific technology that the government has that they refuse to release. You can see, actually, this is some of the video here. Let's watch.
It's going to rapidly.
Could you work this in reverse and use the vapor formation and the gravitational lensing effects to predict the magnitude of the drive, the magnitude of space-time contraction or expansion?
I'm not sure about the actual magnitude. I think it's a yes or no answer. Yes, it's producing a vapor cone, or no, it's not. So here is a diagram on the left showing the spatial compression. The way I described it in the book was, imagine you've compressed 10 cubic feet of space down to 1 cubic foot of compared to normal space, relative to normal space. Let's use the right terms here. And then as it's traveling along at, say, 100 kilometers an hour, the air that it's passing through was in a 1 foot cube, and now it suddenly finds itself in a pocket of space 10 cubic feet in size. It's going to rapidly expand, and if there's enough moisture in the air, it's going to condense and create a visible vapor cloud that would show up as cold on an IR camera. On the right is your typical vapor cone of a jet that's traveling approximately the speed of Mach. These vapor cones will form between 0.8 and 1.2 Mach. But notice how it's on the back half. It's not in front of it. It's basically almost behind it.
Could you?
A new study reveals that warp drive actually operates within known physics. Warp drives are hot right now. Even Popular Mechanics is reporting on the new warp drive paper, Constant Velocity Subluminal Warp Drive. Warp drives uses Miguel Albuquerque's theoretical techniques to bend the laws of physics and space-time itself. The new paper proposed we can create a warp bubble without negative energy. I'm glad people are thinking outside the box. I would humbly submit that we can produce negative energy, and it's been done in labs already on small scales. Other papers on wormholes have argued that they are humanely traversable because they don't have an event horizon, the place where gravity becomes so strong nothing can escape, not even light. Going through a wormhole would be like walking through a doorway. Pretty neat. Popular Mechanics even publishing this. Let's see what they're saying here. New study reveals warp drives actually operates within known physics. The theoretical model for space-time manipulation aligns with established laws. Imagine that. This was published on May 10th of 2024, and now it is gaining a lot of traction. Warp drive been the dream of spacefarers ever since the first graced the pages of science fiction novels, but real-world attempts have often traipsed into areas of exotic physics like negative energy and superluminal matter. A new study produced by scientists using the newly established toolkit Warp Factory announces the creation of a concept that doesn't rely on wonky, never-before-seen physics. While the idea is far from the tech that'll power the future Starship Enterprise, it could nonetheless be an important step towards bringing warp drive research into the realm of known physics. And of course, we do know that Elon Musk wants to be an interplanetary species. Donald Trump, what does he want to do? He wants to build nuclear reactors on the moon. These are all stepping stones to an intergalactic species of humans. Hal Puthoff explains warp drive by changing energy densities of space-time.
Space-time thing where you talked about contracting space in front of a ship and then having it travel at warp speed, that has to do with this background fluctuation.
That's right, having change in the density, as we say, changing the polarizability of the vacuum is another way of looking at it.
So you're accelerating through the vacuum, right? Because when you say you're accelerating within this quantum fluctuation, it has an effect on that background field.
That is certainly the case, because it's essentially pushing aside the vacuum fluctuation to some degree, and that's what's causing the resistance that we call inertia.
But how would you actually contract space-time to do that? I mean, what effect could you put out there to have that?
Well, we know from switching over to the general relativity side of it that you can look at the equations, whether you're using standard general relativity or some of the other approaches to general relativistic type effects, and very strong fields, strong masses. I mean, the mass of the Earth affects the space around it, which, thinking in terms of zero-point energy, is affecting the distribution of zero-point energy.
So if you go to that equation, F equals ma, where the mass times the acceleration equals the force, if you create a force, you can generate a mass that would have an effect on space.
We might generate a force that would move a mass, start to accelerate it, or I mean, what you'd really like to do is just scoop out the energy in front of us, and the energy behind us would just shoot us forward. So,
and that's possible. That's not just a Star Trek concept, but you've seen.
No, we know. I mean, small effects, all of general relativity, for example, is based on these principles. And we can calculate, well, gee, if only we had so much energy,
right.
Then we could make this big effect, we could power a spaceship and so on. It's just that we don't have the engineering tools to do it right now. And frankly, those of us who are working on it think there's still something missing in the theory because it's so hard to do.
Well, it looks like they have just found the missing link to that theory. Warp drive, dark energy, and the manipulation of extra dimensions. Defense intelligence reference documents from 2010 explain how warp drive works via the Alcubierre drive. Bending space-time like this creates a bubble that generates a wormhole, allowing for faster-than-light relativistic speeds. There's a negative energy requirement for warp travel, which we can achieve by adding another dimension, which Tesla referred to as the ether. Kaluza added this extra spatial dimension when he created his unification theory in 1919 to 1921 and added the vector and scalar potentials. And here's the link from the dia.mil. You can go right to the page. Here it is. This is the official document from the Defense Intelligence Reference Document, dated April 2nd, 2010, warp drive, dark energy, and the manipulation of extra dimensions. This is the Defense Intelligence Reference Document. Unclassified. 33 pages long. Going into it, general relativistic warp drive requirements, the cosmological constant, Einstein's equation, and the introduction of A, Casimir energy and the quantum vacuum, the Casimir effect, extra space dimensions. I mean, here it is in black and white from the Defense Department. This is back in 2010, folks. Official documents, now unclassified. Lay it all out. Holy cow, man. This is exciting, though. So they have announced a real warp drive design. Okay, let's see here. As Carl Nell points out, faster than light travel does not violate physical principles. Faster than light travel was mathematically solved by Alcubierre in 1994 in his paper, The Warp Drive, Hyperfast Travel Within General Relativity.
Equation. The second point is faster than light travel.
Okay, so this is Carl Nell, aerospace executive, colonel, retired.
The second point is faster than light travel. Everybody says faster than light travel is not possible. This is false. Miguel Alcubierre, a postgraduate student at the University of Mexico in 1994, solved Einstein's equations for an effective faster than light mechanism. NASA has investigated this. Everyone accepts his solution as valid. His solution requires negative energy. In 1960, quantum physics demonstrated or predicted the reality of negative energy. In the 90s, the Casimir effect was demonstrated in the laboratory. The Casimir effect demonstrates negative energy. The expansion of the universe, which is caused by dark energy, is negative energy. So we have a solution to Einstein's equations that allow effective faster than light travel. We've got the existence of negative energy proven. This isn't an engineering solution. This isn't a means where we can go and do this, but theoretically it's possible. The second point is faster than light travel.
Wow. This is not just Star Trek anymore, folks. Here's more. The Alcubierre drive is brilliant physics, but it's over 30 years old. Daniel Davis explores 13 modern warp drive concepts that overcome the limitations of the original design. Let's check in with this clip.
But when the average person hears the word warp drive, they think Star Trek. But more technically minded people think of the Alcubierre drive. But the reason that I wanted to record this was the Alcubierre drive is 31 years old now, and there have been many, many iterations and variations on this that have come along since then. And so one of the things that I hear fairly often is people saying, well, you can't do that because of Alcubierre's negative energy requirement or this, that, and the other thing, right? And I think one of the challenges is subsequent physicists and authors have come along and revised that, lowered the energy requirements, and made warp drive more feasible. So I wanted to run through kind of a top 10 list, if you're open to that.
Yeah, that works for me. Like you said, Alcubierre is 31 years now. He first came up with his formulation in 1994. Now, if we're talking about comparing the history, so to speak, of this idea of gravitational propulsion, so to speak, really, if we want to talk about warp drive, before we even talk about Alcubierre, we need to back it up to 1957 to Hermann Bondy and talk about he had kind of like a proto warp idea. So during the Chapel Hill conference in 1957, he was talking about how in general relativity it allows for both negative and positive mass solutions. They were talking more at the time of the popular thing where that would come up was the Einstein-Rosen bridge, or the wormhole, as it's more known today. But what he was suggesting is that if you just place one of these regular positive masses, like everything around us, next to a negative mass, the negative mass is going to chase the positive mass, while the positive mass is going to be repelled away from the negative mass. So they will go accelerate off together to unbounded accelerations, and then, there could be problems from that, and then they start introducing positivity conditions, and then that kind of sort of leads us up to 1994 with Alcubierre.
When the average...
Oh my goodness, man, this is crazy. Okay, 0 point energy. Howard Puthoff answers, can you go faster than the speed of light? Discussing Alcubierre warp drive metric and engineering of space-time. Doc Brown would be so proud.
Can't go faster than the speed of light. Can you go faster than light? Okay, in the Alcubierre warp drive, of course, the main requirement he's trying to meet was to, quote, beat the speed of light. And, you usually hear where Einstein said you can't go faster than the speed of light. Well, that's something out of special theory of relativity. And it really is that you can't take an object and speed it up and then through the light barrier, because it would take an infinite amount of energy and mass to do it. But it turns out it's a faulty conclusion to say, therefore, you can't go faster than the speed of light, because once you get into general relativity, you have some options. The options are to change the properties of space itself so that locally the velocity of light is engineered to be faster than the usual value. So in fact, in the Alcubierre warp drive, it isn't exactly that you're beating the speed of light locally. In fact, you're not. And therefore, the terms like the amount of mass and energy that ordinarily blow up, you don't have that problem because you're not actually beating the local speed of light. But if you're able to engineer the local speed of light to be 100 times higher than it is elsewhere, then to an observer, you're speeding along at 100 times the velocity of light without actually violating the deep fundamentals of what it means to not beat the speed of light. And the best way to explain how it is, how it comes about, is that it's actually the idea of stretching space, expanding space on one side of the craft and shrinking space on the other, so that you're not only moving forward through space, space itself is like moving forward on a rubber sheet, while at the same time you're pulling the rubber sheet and expanding it. So then relative to the outside environment, you can be going at, say, the speed of light along the rubber sheet, but if the rubber sheet itself is moving relative to the rest of the universe, then your net motion is faster than the speed of light. So that's sort of the technical aspect. And one of the nice consequences of the mathematics of the particular solution he came up with is by expanding on one side of the spaceship and shrinking it on the other side, you end up setting a tilt in space so that you're actually sort of surfing a wave of of the underlying space-time structure, or the underlying zero-point energy vacuum C. Many ways you can talk about it. And so,
Oh my God. Yeah, is this over your head yet? Because these guys are talking huge. Here's Trump, though. July. It's so crazy. Warp drive and free energy in the form of compact fusion reactors exist in 99% of people have no idea. We're only a few years away from free energy microchips in our phones, and no one will understand how it works. Here's Trump.
That anybody not even close. So nobody's going to do that, and we're very powerful. This country is very powerful. So let me tell you, it's far more powerful than people understand. We have weaponry that nobody has any idea what it is, and it is the most powerful weapons in the world that we have. More powerful than anybody not even close. So nobody's going to do that, and we're very powerful. This country is very powerful.
We have weapons that nobody even knows about. Scientists announced a physical warp drive is now possible. A warp drive on a chip. Former Lockheed Skunk Works RevTech program head Charles Chase discusses diode-based propellantless space drives, ZPE generators, nanotech matching, antimatter shielding, and the Unlab in the full interview. Let's listen to a clip from that.
We make it just in. With the tunneling diode system that you're using, in theory, as you refine that, do you think that that's something that you might be able to put on a chip and basically amplify the power thousands or millions of times?
Yeah, so that's the way we make it. We make it just in a regular semiconductor fab, and we do it on a silicon wafer, and you can make an array of diodes, across the wafer, so you can have millions of diodes, all generating forces, and those all add up together, so that way you can generate with these very microstructures really large forces. And, the first application we're looking at is for space propulsion, because it's, you don't need much force. But as the technology matures, just kind of like Sonny's and Garrett's, they're generating a little current right now. As we understand more about the mechanism and the physics, of course, that's going to increase. We'll be able to generate more, I would think. We'll be able to generate larger forces that would have a lot of terrestrial application as well.
With the tunneling
if you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So what is this? Well, it changes everything, because for decades they kept us chained to rockets and fossil fuels, while the real technology sat in black sites and classified programs. Now physicists have proven the warp drive works without impossible negative energy. Miguel Alcubierre laid out the groundwork in '94. Now today's scientists finished the job. Former Lockheed Skunk Works engineers are talking about drives on chips. Zero-point energy is real. Compact fusion exists. We're not talking about visiting Mars in 20 years. We're talking about reaching other stars in our lifetime. The control system is crumbling because the technology destroys their monopoly. No more energy cartels, no more limitations, no more lies about what's possible. When disclosure comes, millions lose their stranglehold overnight. And that's why they've kept it hidden. So here's the question. Do you believe the government has already built working warp drives? Drop a comment below. And you can gear up for the future at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.